space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise.
Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations.
To boldly go where no one has gone before.
Shields up. Red alert.
Arrival at Vulcan in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2.
Aboard the USS Enterprise, the most sophisticated starship ever built, a novice crew embarks on its maiden voyage. Their path takes them on a collision course with Nero, a commander whose mission of vengeance threatens all of mankind. If humanity was to survive, a rebellious young officer named James T. Kirk and a coolly logical Vulcan named Spock must move beyond their rivalry and find a way to defeat Nero before it's too late. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we're talking 2009 Star Trek, directed by J.J. Abrams. Hey guys, welcome back to the first feature presentation episode of Midnight Double Feature for 2019. This is actually our first official episode. We had the Thing prequel. Just gonna chuck that out there. Dude, guys, I'm joined by Colin and Danny. Hey, how you doing, guys? One at a time.
I'm doing good. How are you, Danny? Just say it real quick now.
It's like when you show up at a stop sign. I don't know if you guys are like this anywhere. You stay
like,
there and wait for somebody else to go. You're like, I'll definitely go last that way. I'm doing good.
Yeah, nice. But dude, we're fucking starting the year off big. All right, I thought, all right, we got to kick it off with a franchise film, something massive, something that's gonna kind of like lay the course for the year. And I chose undoubtedly one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time, Star Trek, the 2009 Star Trek. And I'm gonna let's go around the table and let's try before we give our thoughts, guys. And I feel like I have an inkling of where this is gonna go. But Colin, you first. Tell me what your history is with Star Trek.
Okay, history with Star Trek. So I've never really seen. I don't think I've seen any of the movies. Nothing of the original ones with Shatner and Nimoy. I never watched the original show growing up. I just grew up. We had like 5, 6, 7 channels. Like that was it. I didn't have like cable and satellite and all that other shit. So I grew up watching like a little bit of Deep Space Nine, a little bit of like Voyager, obviously Next Gen, and then later on like Star Trek Enterprise, just like little bits and pieces here and there. But honestly, I don't really have much of a history. I'm not a big Star Trek fan. I think anybody who's a fan of sci-fi still has to respect the lore around it, and you have to respect the fact that this was like Star Wars before Star Wars like kind of came in and pushed Star Trek like out a little bit. In my opinion, I think Star Wars is obviously like much bigger now, in my opinion. But I think it's okay. It's not my favorite kind of like mythology. I mean, I like Star Wars more. I've just always been more of a fan of Star Wars. And they had those movies coming out right when I was like 9, 10, and 11. So it's perfect timing to kind of rekindle a lot of people in like our generation's group to, watching the older movies. So I'm not so much of a big Star Trek fan. I know enough, I know Klingons and Vulcans and then Klingon Death Grip, Live Long and Prosper and all that other stuff. Most of my knowledge from Star Trek actually comes from Futurama, because they're just like they hold that show up in such high, to such a high pedestal. But other than that, I mean, that's really about all I got. I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. The first time I've ever seen this movie, I haven't seen Beyond. I haven't seen Into Darkness. I've very, 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 very rarely ever watched anything from the original one with Shatner. And it's not something I'm against getting into, but it's just not anything I've ever really had an inkling to. So short and sweet and to the point.
Nice. So nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Got a goddamn
awesome
thing.
All right, cool. No, all good. Danny, give me your history on Star Trek.
Same.
Yep. Nice. And you know what it is? It's the same for me as well. I fucking knew it. I knew that all three of us would have zero history with Star Trek.
Yeah, my parents were Trekkies on a serious note, so they're the ones that got me to go see this when it came out, and but it ended up up loving it. I'd seen another one of the Shatner movies where they were in San Francisco in modern times, and it was really weird at the time. So that's practically my only exposure with any Star Trek. That's it.
Right. I remember watching Star Trek, maybe an episode back in the day, and I think it was rented. And I honestly think it was The Next Generation because I do remember Picard. That's obviously Patrick Stewart. But I don't remember anything else. I remember maybe seeing a bit of Star Trek Nemesis, which was the movie that was before this Star Trek, which was the one with Tom Hardy. But I don't remember anything at all from it. So my Star Trek history is totally limited, but I do, like you said, Colin, I do know a lot about the lore, like Vulcans and Romulans and things like that. So, and like I think it's fair to say that when you're a kid, it's either Star Trek or Star Wars, and like that changes when you get older. You can obviously find merits in both of them, but like when you're a kid, it's kind of like it's one or the other.
Right.
So,
it's like what Mia Wallace says in Pulp Fiction. She's like, "There's two types of people in this world: Elvis people and Beatles people."
Right. No, that's exactly right. Exactly right. So for me, obviously, it was Star Wars because it's the more exciting. Like no one wants to go see them fucking explore planets and find new alien life forms. We want to see battles and people dying. Like, come on.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, man. Let's get stuck into this fucking movie. Danny, you give me your thoughts on Star Trek 2009 first.
So I was saying this a second ago. I would have probably maybe seen this, but without the influence. But my parents were the type of people that had like some Star Trek collectible plates up in a closet because they liked them so much. When my mom was alive, she would talk about how when they used to live out in California, that she would go to see like these Leonard Nimoy book signings. So she like had met him several times, and so she was crazy about all those.
That's awesome.
all the ways I think that they were interesting, like outside of Star Trek, apparently. So that just made it interesting to me even more. So they came out with a trailer, and it was like the first time I remember she was actually excited to go see a movie, and I thought that really struck me as interesting. So when we went and saw it, we loved it. I thought it was really great, and I think that might have been the first J.J. Abrams thing I ever got exposed to too. Like lens flare is now a word I know. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and it was I can see how it was nostalgic and definitely more interesting than the San Francisco like hippie version I had seen forever ago. So that's my thoughts on that.
Nice. Colin, hit me.
This movie's okay.
Son of a bitch.
You knew it. You knew it was gonna fucking happen, dude.
Piece of shit.
Honestly, I sat down to watch it, and I don't know why. I've just never really had an inkling to watch this. I don't have anything against Star Trek. I really don't. I do think that because when you're a Star Wars fan, I think, and Danny, you can attest. I mean, Danny's got a fucking full length back tattoo of a goddamn star of like a lightsaber. So like, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, is Danny. Like,
not really a lightsaber, but anyway.
But whatever. Yeah. It's a Star Wars like tattoo.
Yeah,
but
the Outcast, the Jedi Outcast symbol. If you've ever seen that, it's a really cool symbol. So there's my secret, by the way. Most people don't know that.
Well, I think when you're a Star Wars fan, you kind of get lumped into a category with the Star Trek fans, and I think even in that kind of like fan kind of like culture, like Star Trek people are always looked on as like even more nerdy than the people who were into Star Wars, and I don't know why that is, because there's really not much of a difference between them. Like it's really not. You throw in a couple of swords and some people with telepathy, and there's really not that much of like a difference and stuff. I thought it was a good movie. I think it's fine. I as I'm watching it, I'm not just like, oh my god, I want to slit my wrist and cut my eyes, and just fucking like not watch this. Yeah, not watch this fucking thing.
That was my first concern when I heard you were gonna have to watch this, Colin.
I thought that Colin was going to blind himself and commit suicide at the end of it. No, I'd have done that. I'd have done that on the island before I did that on this movie.
That's fair.
But
if you don't like any of those actors, it's easy to hate that film. It's definitely easy to pick on. Like I forget Scarlett Johansson's in that because she doesn't have any like vocal lines. She just screams the whole time.
Yeah, I think more than anything, Colin would slit his wrist because it's Michael Bay.
Oh God, yeah. I'm not a Michael Bay fan, and I'm not gonna lie. This is out of all the J.J. Abrams stuff, this is probably like lowest on my list. Like I definitely put Super 8, Cloverfield, and his other movies like above this one, just because I do like it. It's an okay movie. I'm not mad that I watched it. I'm not really happy that I watched it. It's honestly one of the few things I've watched for this podcast, and I was just kind of like, well, that's a movie, and honestly, like there's not a whole lot. There's nothing about it that I just like, oh my God, like I have to show this to someone else. But it's not one of those things like I'm deleting that out of my browsing history. It's like I'm not ashamed of it or anything. I'm just kind of lukewarm on it. It's got some cool stuff. I think it's got some stuff that doesn't work and is kind of cheesy. But I realize you kind of have to forgive that when they're relaunching these kind of things. I think when you start something like Captain America, the First Avenger, or Iron Man, or Lord of the Rings, or Matrix, or something that's going to launch a new kind of line of things. I mean, because this was absolutely huge. Like whenever it was coming out, I remember everybody was making a big deal. Largely because of Zach Quinto as Spock. That was a really, really big deal.
But I hadn't known him from anything else before that. Am I the only one?
Yeah, no, me neither.
I'd seen him in Heroes before that.
I saw him in Heroes after the fact, and then was like, oh, it's Spock.
I straight up thought it was Brandon Ruth from Superman Returns. Swear to God, like I fucking thought it was. But it's something that just kind of I never really had an inkling to see. It was cool. It's got some problems and it's got some stuff that works, and I think perfectly balanced as all things should be. It's got
nice.
it's got stuff that I like and stuff that I don't like, and I think that so many times I sit down to watch a movie, and this just shows you, I think, kind of like the mental state of people that watch movies after a while. They're expecting to either be blown out of their seat or so disappointed, and it's rare that a movie comes along that just really hits the middle of the road for you. And this was a unique experience for me, because like usually I'll watch something or I'll pick something like The Thing and I'm super excited about it. Even The Thing prequel, super excited about it because I like that mythology. But then we do movies that I'm kind of like meh, just kind of meh about, like Guardians of the Galaxy or something, and I'm like, that's cool, whatever. And it's just
said it was okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay. That's about where I stand on it.
Interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so like I said, man, I fucking love this movie. And this is a movie that I came at with, like I said, zero expectations, because I hadn't been exposed to Star Trek really before that. But for me, man, the things that were exciting me about it were the trailers. There were two incredible trailers, like some really like well cut, awesome trailers with amazing background music behind them. And like Danny, you mentioned that teaser trailer. So that teaser trailer, it only goes for about a minute or so, and it's basically just the Enterprise being built. That was directed by J.J. Abrams, actually. And basically the marketing campaign for this was just really, really exciting. By the way, I'm 15 when I first watched this movie, so this was like right in my wheelhouse. I was excited because I wanted to be exposed to Star Trek. I wanted to be exposed to Star Trek. Like, it was just something that I wanted to get into at that age, and I wanted to, I knew that they were throwing a whole lot of money at it because it just felt like quality. Like, the trailers just looked awesome. And I remember, man, like watching that Picard one, and like everything was kind of cool except the effects. I remember the effects being so like dated at that time, and I just remember being like, oh man, if they like made this a little bit better, like it'd be a little more Interesting. And then I saw the trailers for this, and I was like, God, yes, let's hit this up.
Yeah.
By the fucking way, this movie is 10 years old.
Wow.
That's hard to believe.
Dude, fucking wild, right? And I just want to mention as well, this is our second J.J. Abrams movie, so this is the first time we've covered a director twice, which is interesting because...
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, because like it's weird because I can't go through the director like I usually do, like because I already did it on the Super 8 episode. But yeah, man, I think this movie's fantastic. It's just got fantastic performances. The visuals are outstanding. And more than anything, it's the sound design for me that works. Like, this movie is just a visual and auditory, like, treat.
Yeah, if you put Beastie Boys in a movie, you've already got me hooked.
But not even that, man. Like, I watched this. We have, like, a little home theater thing. So, like, we have, like, a bass, like a sub, right? And, man, when they're taking off with the warp sounds, oh, it sounds fucking beautiful. And this was nominated for sound design as well for an Oscar, so really well deserved. But yeah, and I thought, everyone was kind of confused as to what this movie was, and this was the first time I'd seen that this movie is not a prequel. Like, everyone thought that this was a prequel, but I thought the story was actually clever. The way they kind of like, JJ was kind of like, okay, well, everything you know from Star Trek has happened before, but this is just a different reality. This is a different alternate timeline. So, we're going to play with something new here and do something else. Like, that was, I like like, time travel can be kind of finicky. Like, you guys talked about it in the Terminator episode. Once you get into time travel and all the time travel paradoxes, it can be kind of confusing.
I almost tend to dislike films because they almost just try and make any plot hole go away by saying it's time travel. That's okay.
Yeah, but in terms of like setting up a franchise, I thought the way that this did it was really clever. Like, like these, by having Spock meet Spock, like it's instantly changed everything that's going to happen in the future. So like it's a whole new thing. So in terms of like being a prequel, it turns into a reboot as well.
And I think something Matt would probably say is very good writing, that they would try and write in someone like Leonard Nimoy to let old crowds still be interested in seeing a revitalized version of the franchise.
Right, and you do get those awesome fan moments, where Leonard Nimoy holds up his hand and he's like, "Live long and prosper." Like, that's fucking badass. By the way, when this premiered, I remember this premiering, because movies don't premiere at the Sydney Opera House like ever, but I remember this premiered at the Opera House, and apparently there was like spontaneous applause from the audience when Leonard Nimoy appeared on screen. By the way, rest in peace, Leonard Nimoy. You're fucking awesome in this movie. Like, he's just got that wise Yoda.
Very good presence.
Feel. Yeah,
dude. If you want to hear something crazy, this is just a little side tangent. One of the thing I knew Leonard Nimoy from was an animated movie I watched growing up as a kid. It's called The Halloween Tree, and it's super cool. It's like an animated horror thing. It was a book by Ray Bradbury, who did like Fahrenheit 451, and it's a kid's book just about Halloween, and he's this old man who has the Halloween tree, and it's a big tree with all these Halloween pumpkins like carved on it. But his voice is this crazy kind of thing, and I remember watching it about a week ago. I was like, wait, that's fucking Leonard Nimoy, and dude, like I would have like his name's Mr. Mountshroud, and he's literally like Clarence Clavicle Mountshroud, and dude, it does not sound like Leonard Nimoy, and I was like, dude, I wish you would have done some more voice acting. Like, holy shit, that guy's incredible,
dude. That's like finding like it's funny that you like discovered Leonard Nimoy from something that he's like totally not known for.
That's
like discovering that's like discovering
he probably forgot he did.
That's like discovering Sigourney Weaver in Paul instead of fucking Alien.
Oh my god, Sigourney Weaver in Finding Dory as the aquarium narrator.
Yeah, I remember that.
That would be somebody like recognizing that.
I saw somebody talking about Sandra Bullock, and they're like, "Oh, the lady from Bird Box," and someone's like, "Hold the fuck up, dude! She is not the lady from Bird Box."
Speed.
Yeah, Speed. Come on, dude.
It was just cans. It was only cans. I fucking made that reference in an upcoming attractions, I think, literally like last week. But
that's awesome. I get it.
But yeah, man, this has a damn decent story as far as reboots go. Whenever like someone's like, "Oh, why are they rebooting it?" Like, this is literally the movie that I point them to. I'm like, kind of look at Star Trek and look at like how decently it rebooted what you know, and like kind of like went in a whole new direction. Like, this was because this was JJ's thing. He's got a lot of stuff to juggle with this movie. He has to bring this boring as fucking, well, kind of boring sort of thing into like the whole for modern audiences, right? Like, he had to bump up the action, he had to bump up the excitement, but he had to also establish new characters and establish like new actors who are playing these iconic characters. And it's just a lot to juggle, man. And I just thought he did so damn well. But yeah, I point this as one of my favorite reboots, along there with Casino Royale, for 007.
I'd love to cover that one day.
That movie's fantastic.
Yes, it is.
And man, someone like, I love film scores, and Michael Giacchino does the score in this so fucking well. It just fits perfectly, man. But this is, I mean, a lot of people have issues with this movie because it's not technically Star Trek. Like, it's not them visiting other planets. It's not them, like, you know, discovering new life forms. Well, I guess it is, but it's more of a... It feels like a Star Wars show reel, if that makes sense. It's very Star Wars up. And, like, that's because, I mean, obviously JJ went on to direct Force Awakens, and JJ is a massive Star Wars fan, and he wasn't familiar with Star Trek at all. And that's why people were like, really worried before this movie came out. So, but yeah, man, I think he knocked it out of the park. This stands up there with some of the best stuff that JJ's done for me, if not the best thing for me. Like, I love The Force Awakens, man, but this, I can always watch this movie. It's just, I find it so fun, I find it so entertaining, and it's just a great time, man. Like, I just, it's fantastic. I love it. Let's fucking get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so we open with this crazy ass opening. So again, I love the score of the studio logos, how it ramps up and it opens on the Kelvin. This is something that JJ does really well. Like, just the timing of the music and things like that is fantastic. Yeah. And then it opens on the Kelvin, and immediately you get the style, like the visual style of the movie. Like, there's going to be a lot of CGI, a lot of lens flares.
Lens flare.
But the USS Kelvin comes across a lightning storm in space, and we meet Captain Rabot. Do you guys recognize him?
Motherfucking 10 Rings, dude.
Yeah,
he's
bitch.
in a lot of stuff that I don't know, like off the top of my head, exactly where I've seen him.
But Iron Man would be the best one, but best example.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
10 Rings. His name is Farhan Tahir.
Oh, and you know, we recently watched this pretty up there B movie called Escape Plan with Sylvester Stallone in it, and he was an inmate in that.
Yeah, we talked privately, me and Matt. Oh, I think it was in the chat in our group chat about the sequel for that being terrible.
Oh yeah, I want to watch it just to be entertained by its awfulness. If it's true,
I'm good.
When this guy popped up from Iron Man, I was like, oh, Keegan-Michael Key, that's awesome, dude. What are you doing here?
It does look like him.
I was like, oh, I see we got Tyler Perry about 25 minutes of the movie. I guess it makes sense. We have Keegan-Michael Key. I was like, that's interesting.
And then you realized it wasn't him when Jordan Peele wasn't Chris. It was fucking Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, right. I wish it would have cut over to Jordan Peele as Obama. I'd be like, we've set the phasers to stun. Nothing seems to be working. I've given her all she's got.
Dude, he totally looks like Keegan. That's fucking hilarious. I never put that together.
Racist as shit.
And then we get this Romulan ship called the Narada. It appears through the black hole. Dude, this ship looks badass.
Yeah, and
like
the visual effects
design.
of them the visual effects of them introducing it is really cool. How it comes through that black hole, and it's literally almost two-dimensional in the sense that you can't see the black hole, from its side. There's just one side that's there, and the other side isn't. It's cool.
Hell yeah, it's fucking awesome, man.
And it definitely makes you feel scared for them. This scene, it's like you're clenching on within the first minute.
Right, because there's this kind of like side shot of like the scale. So you've got the sun behind them, then you've got the Narada, and then you've got the USS Kelvin being like this tiny ass thing. It sets up the stakes really well. But I just love that there's like no questions, no talking. The Narada just fucking starts firing. Mm-hmm. It's fucking awesome. Chris Hemsworth is here as George Kirk in his first film role. Dude,
yeah,
this is his first film role.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, after so there's a big Australian show called Home and Away. It's a soap, and he went straight from that to this, which is interesting. But a lot of people went from Home and Away or another Australian show soap called Neighbours. That's fucking Margot Robbie. So Margot Robbie came from that show as well. So
you know what's really interesting about this beginning scene? Just and it might have been because I was watching it earlier today, but it reminds me a lot of Man of Steel, which I know this came out way before Man of Steel did. But like the planet's ending, we have this fight, this like kind of like some aerial dogfights. I think the beginning scene in Man of Steel is done a lot better than the way they do it in this one, but it reminded me of it a lot. Like especially a lot of the like the CGI use and stuff. Like if you go back and watch Man of Steel and watch this, like you can kind of see. I was like, wow, these actually are very similar, like CGI wise. Not later on when we're on a set and we're with the actors, but just like the space battles and the kind of. I think it's also the way that the Romulans look. They have that big black bulky kind of armor, which reminds me of like the Kryptonians and Zod and everybody. But it reminded me of the beginning of Man of Steel, a father dying, sending off his only son, and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually drawing like a little bit of a parallel here.
Wait, so you thought Man of Steel did that better?
Oh fuck yeah, dude! I love the beginning of Man of Steel. That's fucking awesome. Oh, we'll cover that movie someday. That's like the best DC movie they've done so far that I've seen.
I wait for you. No, I mean, like, dude, I love this better. I don't know. Maybe I think it's just the music.
No. Hang on. Pause the fucking movie. Pause the podcast.
Pause the podcast. I don't know. I think it's the music. I don't know. I think I feel for the music does it for me in this.
This has got an A+ score for real.
This is. Do you know what the score is for Rotten Tomatoes on this movie? 94.
Yeah, it's up there, man.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It's entertaining, so.
Yeah. But dude, I love fire all phases, and in the background, just the sound effects of the phases being fired. Fucking orgasm worthy.
Yeah.
But the narrator fucks up the Kelvin, man. You know, you got the quick shot of the officer being blown out of the hull and into the silent space. God damn.
Awful.
Yeah, that's
fucking
scary.
Horrifying. The narrator wants to negotiate a ceasefire, saying that Captain Robot has to come aboard the shuttlecraft. Your refusal would be unwise. And Captain George Kirk. Robot is presented to Nero and is asked about a certain spacecraft, and Robot wants to know what gives Nero the right to attack a Federation vessel. And then we get, do you know the location of Ambassador Spock? Which is interesting because everyone knows who Spock is, right? Like, even if you've never seen Star Trek, you must kind of like have an inkling of who Spock is.
Yeah,
like,
just in pop culture references alone, someone's gonna say or do do the Vulcan. I don't know what that is. The Vulcan hand. It's not a handshake. It's like the Vulcan sign.
Yeah, the salute. Yeah.
Salute. Yeah.
So they ask what the current star date is. 223304. Where are you from? And Nero just fucking takes him out.
He didn't even give him a chance to figure out what the date is. Was there another movie that we watched recently, Colin, where they're asking about what year it is and he doesn't immediately get an answer?
Huh?
I laughed my ass off about that.
George Kirk orders the evacuation. His wife tells him that the baby's coming. Computer tells him that the autopilot has been destroyed and there's menu operation only. And Kirk basically orders the shuttle pilot to leave without him. A touching sacrifice scene, I thought. I don't know. I just thought it was really, pretty up there.
Yeah,
Chris Hemsworth, man. This Chris Hemsworth kid's going places. I'm going to bet you, man. He's going to be big one day.
Well, and I like the fact that he's not this like chiseled god. Like, he looks like he just looks like an average dude. You know, he's got like short, like average hair. He's got like.
Oh, he'll become a chiseled god.
Right, he looks so normal in this that I had forgotten that he was in this until we had rewatched this. I was like,
dude, he looks fit, like so fit here, but he still looks doughy compared to Thor.
Yeah, right. He looks a lot like Shatner, more so than Chris Pine looks like Shatner. You know.
Yeah. By the way, so he pilots the ship for exactly 12 minutes here, and later when Captain Pike says, your father was a ship for 12 minutes, that's literally correct.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. Also, just a little fun fact. So the crew on the Kelvin used those communicators that were the same style in the original series, kind of like the flip phone.
Okay. Yeah.
But when Nero changes the timeline and starts the alternate universe, the communicators change drastically. It's just kind of like a little detail because obviously he's changed the future. Yeah, man, just little details, But yeah, so Kirk crashes the Kelvin into the Narada, but not before naming their kid, James Tiberius Kirk. And dude, the shot makes it look like the sacrifice didn't do shit. Like, it's just kind of like slowed the ship down and that's it.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the final scene at the end of Ant-Man when they're fighting and it looks so big and then when they cut back, it's just like these little bitty like pink, like it's like a tiny little, like you can tell he definitely he accomplished what he aimed to do. It wasn't in vain, but it was still like, I kind of wish it would have fucked him up just a little bit more, like giving him a little bit more like run for their money. But I was like, it's just enough for them to literally swing by the sweat of their nuts.
And then we get the title card. I love the music in this movie. I fucking love it. Okay, eat me, Colin.
Ba, 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 da, da, da,
Oh, da-da-da-da. Oh, we just lost all of our Star Trek listeners. Thanks.
I love that Battlestar Galactica theme.
We cut to Iowa. By the way, I would murder this kid if he stole my vintage car like this. Like, see ya, mate. By the way, this was interesting because in the first trailer, not the teaser trailer, in the first trailer for Star Trek for this movie, this was literally the first thing you see in the trailer. So it's like, what is this? What, like, this isn't Star Trek. Like, this is literally a modern car being driven by a kid and over a cliff. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It was just a really cool, like, misleading shot. It was awesome. Cool futuristic Nokia phone. And like you said, Danny, sabotaged by the Beastie Boys.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say, have you guys seen Star Trek Beyond? You haven't seen it, Colin, have you?
No.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, there's another
Okay.
Beastie Boys song in there. They actually they have
the
a
same
little
one.
bit of. I thought it was Intergalactic that they have.
No, it's the same. Well, I don't know if it's that scene, but like there is a scene in Beyond where sabotage gets used in the story.
So, no,
that's cool.
it's not sabotage.
No, it is sabotage. I'm telling you, like they play it as like
See,
a distraction.
listen to him. Fucking listen to him.
I am right.
So there is some significance to know about that, believe it or not. Beastie Boys usually don't let a lot of people use their music for advertising. It's just something that they've always done. But they have music videos themselves where they're parodying Star Trek. So they were actually okay for once, letting their music be in a movie because it's like one of the movies that inspired a lot of the lyrics and a lot of their raps and definitely inspired a lot of their music videos. So it's actually kind of a big deal because there's other people that use their music in a commercial, didn't ask them, and they sued them and made them take it off. So it's
son.
that's how serious they are about it. But when it shows up in a movie, I'm like, oh man, like it literally gets like their endorsement.
Dude, it's even longer in Beyond. Like it's actually written into the script.
Yeah, it's the end of that. It's the end of that battle where Idris Elba is.
Yeah.
Is that right? I
So
thought
it is
that
fucking
was.
sabotage. I'm telling you.
I thought it was Intergalactic. I'll have to look it up here in a minute.
Fucking noob.
You said something about suing somebody for copyright. I could feel Zoheb's lawyer nipples getting hard. Just a tightening of the areola.
So my next note here is, well done, kid. You nearly Mufasa'd yourself.
Yeah, right.
Off the fucking cliff. I dig this cop bike, and the bike reminds me of that bike from the island. Remember that bike?
Yeah, I was thinking Looper. This whole thing reminded me of Looper a little bit, like countryside Iowa, a little bit of like old school meets like future tech kind of thing. But this obviously predates Looper as well. So
take me home, country road, to the place. I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, Conway Twitty.
And then I'm just going to insert like a 20-minute Conway Twitty performance here.
Colin, did you know that Conway Twitty is buried in the graveyard, like right down the road from here?
Seriously?
I swear to God, yeah, that's crazy.
Go visit him. Lay some Family Guy rates over there.
It's okay.
Vulcan, we meet the nerds, right? And we meet Spock. He's bullied. Imagine being bullied by super nerds.
Yeah.
I presume you've prepared new insults for today. Like, affirmative. Okay, fuck off, kid.
Yeah, that's a good line.
He's like the total mass inertia of your mother's gravity, blah, blah, blah. like a terrible your mama's so fat joke.
Your mama's so fat joke. So basically they're trying to elicit an emotional response from Spock. It works when it actually works when you call his mother a whore. Who would have thought that, right?
Yeah, right. When does that happen? Ever.
It works all the time, even for aliens. Spock has a conversation with his father, played by
Hello, mother. Hello, father.
Hello, father. Here I am at Camp Granada. Played by Ben Cross, not to be confused with David Cross. About the control of feelings so that they do not control you. Hey, by the way, that advice would have helped me in some real failed relationships back in the day.
Yeah,
thanks, Star Trek. But man, there's some really good lines here. You are fully capable of deciding your own destiny. The question you face is which path will you choose? And I've been digging the whole whole destiny thing, man, lately, I don't know why. Becoming the person you were meant to be and making the right decisions to end up where you were always meant to be. And like that kind of part of it is a Star Wars thing, I think, inherently. Like the whole, looking out at the two sunsets and deciding who you're going to be and like what decisions you're going to make in your life to like end up where you are.
Fulfill your destiny.
Right, exactly. It's a very Star Wars thing to bring to Star Trek, but I don't know. It might have happened in the old movies. I don't know, but I just thought it was cool. And we meet pre-Stranger Things, but post-kleptomaniac Winona Ryder as Spock's mother. She's still hot, by the way.
I say, yeah, you could try all you want to make her not look hot, but she's still going to be hot.
Right, exactly. Like she's still. I mean, come on. And by the way, Zachary Quinto as Spock. Can we talk about him? He's fucking fantastic.
He's pretty good. He's one of the better parts of this movie.
You can fuck off. No, but these are big shoes to fill, man. Like, I mean, imagine like stepping into the shoes of a Han Solo in his prime. Like, I know they did a young one, but like, imagine a prime Han Solo. Imagine like doing that again. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's unheard of.
Yeah, especially when you go into Star Trek or Star Wars, those fans are unforgiving as fuck when you mess that up, dude. So fucking angry.
And it says something that Zachary Quinto's Spock was pretty well received by everyone. Like, you don't hear a lot of complaints about his performance.
No.
Right.
So I just thought that was really, really fantastic. But yeah, Spock is accepted into Vulcan Science Academy, but he rejects it when the elders refer to his mother as a disadvantage. Live long and prosper. By the way, these guys are dicks. I'm sorry. You can be logical all you want and have no emotion, but you know when you're being a dick.
Isn't his dad one of the council members?
Yeah. His dad doesn't say anything.
Fuck that.
Yeah. We go back to Iowa, this bar scene. We meet Uhura, played by Zoe Saldana. By the way, this was a big year for her with Avatar as well. This was a massive year, actually. She gets suggested the Slusho mix by the bartender, and Slusho is a JJ thing, pretty much like how Pixar have A113.
Oh, yeah.
It's just kind of like a trademark, director trademark. And we meet sleazy Chris Pine as James Kirk.
He's a character in this, man.
I do like their back and forth. I love Zoe, like, just pretty much being like, her drink's on her. Thank you, but no thank you. The alien in the middle is the Balchinian of Star Trek, by the way. Like, he must be, right? Like, he's just got this... Yeah, right. So basically, Kirk's hitting on Uhura. It turns out he's a bit wittier and clever than he looks, and he gets into a brawl with Cupcake and his buddies. I'm just going to call him Cupcake. This fight is pretty brutal, actually. Just the way it's like filmed, like everything's just going everywhere, glass breaking everywhere.
Yeah, see, at first I thought he totally had all of them because they're all wearing red. I'm like, shit, they'll all be dead by the end of this fucking fight. He'll just beat all of them to death. Because at first he's kind of like, dude, he's kicking some ass, but it's fucking like, what, 4 or 5 dudes? It's like, dude, you're going down inevitably. But at first it's like, he's going to wind up just like punching one dude and his head's just going to rip off and he's going to be like, fuck everybody in fucking red every time.
Yeah, pretty much. By the way, we'll get to it when we get to it. I'll bring it up later. So bring some more guys and then it'll be an even fight.
Yeah.
I always dug that. And I always liked how the camera kind of held on the guy's fist and then pans up to Bruce Greenwood as Captain Pike.
It's a good shot.
It is a cool shot. By the way, man, I fucking love Bruce Greenwood.
Yeah,
like,
great.
This guy is awesome, and I'm so glad that he's in this one and the sequel as well. Like, he's just got that commanding voice. He was Overlord in Modern Warfare 3, like the guy who'd like give you missions and like do the voiceover in multiplayer and things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Just always thought that his voice was incredible, man. He's just got this commanding voice. But yeah, man, I love this scene. So Pike tells Kirk about his dad not believing in no-win scenarios and leaping without looking. Pike encourages Kirk to enlist in Starfleet and basically tells him that he can be an officer in 4 years and having his own ship in 8. And again, man, the lines here are fantastic. Your father was a captain of a starship for 12 minutes. He saved 800 lives. I dare you to do better. Yeah. And then at this point, I just wrote, I love Bruce Greenwood.
Yeah, he has a very good charismatic voice, so always grabs your attention. He plays I think, a perfect character in this to set him straight, A
great mentor character, yeah, for sure. Right. Kirk ends up going to the shuttle launch point and tells Pike that he'll be an officer in 3 years. And I love the at ease gentleman to Cupcake.
Yeah.
And dude, this is where we get the always awesome Carl Urban as Leonard Bones McCoy. Dude,
yeah.
Carl Urban. Like, we've talked about him on Dread, but he's fucking awesome.
I don't know, man. I'm not like I actually, and that's what sucks. Is like I do like Carl Urban, and Carl Urban's cool, but I don't like this character. I don't like. I think it's mainly in just the way that he talks. I don't know what it is that's so odd about it. Like I know he's an Australian actor, but I know he doesn't
New
have.
Zealand.
Yeah, well, fucking same thing. Whatever.
It's not the same thing.
It's like Ireland and Scotland.
No.
It's the same shit. It's like
They fuck sheep. They fuck sheep over there.
Sorry, I love that. That's the distinction. Like that's the one thing. He's like we're alike in all other ways,
Yeah,
except for the
that's one of
fact
the
that we
first-
don't fuck sheep.
That's one of the first paragraphs in Wikipedia when you go to those two countries.
Yeah, it's like go to New Zealand, definitely not Australia. It's like the first thing that pops up. But I don't mind Carl Urban. I think Carl Urban's a fine actor. I loved him in Dredd, and I know he's great. But there's something about the way that he talks that is so odd to me, and I don't know what it is. Like he's so over exaggerating with a lot of the stuff that he's saying, and the way that he makes his voice sound. I'm like, now you sound like someone who's putting on an accent to me, and I don't know what it is about it that comes across as very unnatural. But like in Dredd, he's awesome. He like everything else I've seen him in, he's fine. This is the first thing I ever saw him in, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I just don't really care for that. I don't know what it is.
I think he's supposed to be scruffy, kind of a callback to the original character, because I do
Yeah.
remember that about the original Doctor, is that he seems a little bit, it's almost like he has other places he's got to be, and he's only dealing with being a doctor to put up with stuff,
Right.
damn it, I'm a doctor, Jim, not a scientist or whatever. So I always kind of thought that he was very similar to him in that aspect. It helped me remember who he was in the previous Star Trek stuff that I'd very slightly seen.
Yeah, I think I agree with Danny. Like he's trying to embody this character who, again, literally doesn't want to be there. Like he's got better places to be.
Yeah.
But I can, you know what, Colin? I did pick that up the first time I saw it, and I think I just grew into this character because of the sequels as well. Like the more you get to know this character as well, I kind of like fell into it a little bit more. And because you don't have that, maybe that's why you're pushing up against it a little.
Maybe, yeah, because I want to like him. He's a cool character. It's just the way that he's portrayed and approached that I don't really care for, and I don't think it's anything in the writing. I think it's in the performance. For me personally,
That's fair enough. So you're wrong, right? That's all good.
Moving along.
Cut to 3 years later. Massive time jump. The narrator arrives at a targeted location, but there's nothing there. What do you guys think of Eric Bana as Nero?
I thought it was Mark Ruffalo.
I didn't know who that was supposed to be, and then I looked at the IMDb credits and was like,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, man, that was obviously a big thing here because Eric Bana's Australian. So, like, when I found out that an Aussie would be playing a bad guy in fucking Star Trek, I was like stoked.
I think we're
like
finding
him,
out why Zoheb really likes this film then.
Yeah, right.
But no, I think Nero is one of the weakest parts of this movie.
Yes.
I don't think there's enough to him. Like, I get the whole vengeance plot, but I don't think there's enough to him. I would like to see a bit more. And judging from the trailers, like, there are a lot of shots in the trailers where that weren't included of Nero. Like, there's a whole scene of him basically in prison, and there's a whole, like, in the first trailer, even at the end, like, before the title card, it's like the wait is over, and then, like, that's not even in the movie. So I do think there was a lot of stuff that was kind of cut, but hey, I guess it's just the way things go sometimes.
He just happens to be the stepping stone in the whole setup, I guess, of this universe then, right?
Right, exactly. And, you know, they don't really, because I know JJ wanted to, like, he must have wanted to use Khan as the villain from the jump, but you can, like, tell that, like, because the way he treats Khan in the sequel, by the way, Khan, for those of you that don't know, he's probably one of the most iconic villains of Star Trek.
You're right. I think I've heard his name before I'd heard any other names.
Right. And, like, the way he uses Khan in the sequel is a little, like, better handled than it is here with Nero. But yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms that I'll talk about maybe in a future episode one day. But yeah, they see Spot Prime's ship come through the black hole and capture that ship. And then we come back to the Academy. Kirk wants to take the Kobayashi Maru again. He has sex with the Greek.
Name. What's funny is I don't remember a lot about this movie, but I remember the Kobayashi Maru. I remember
Do you
that
remember
word.
because of the usual suspects?
Yeah,
No,
see,
I don't.
Kobayashi is what I like. The Kobayashi is immediately what I started thinking of. Yeah, fucking God, that's a whole other can of worms from fucking Kevin Spacey right now. now.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, listeners, we were we were throwing out movies to cover, right? And like we've wanted to cover The Usual Suspects for so fucking long, and I threw out, hey, what about The Usual Suspects? Without thinking about what's happening to Kevin Spacey right now. And Colin, you were like, no, let's shut this shit down.
Like, but what the fuck is wrong with you?
The last time I threw out fucking The Usual Suspects, it was Bryan Singer in the fucking spotlights. I can't fucking win with that movie. Can't fucking win with that movie.
I love that. I love that Zoe Saldana. Sorry, I almost said Zoe Kravitz because that's the first Zoe I think of. Zoe Saldana, when she comes in, I love that he's begging a chick that looks kind of like Gamora. like she walked in, she's like, "What are you doing with my suit on?" And she like takes her skin off. She's like, "I'm sorry, here, like it's a pair of earrings, or like a pair of shoes." Like, who said you could borrow my exoskeleton? She has to hand her skin back.
Thanos walks in. What are you doing with my daughter?
I have 2 daughters, perfectly balanced as it all should be.
You don't want to bang the other one because she's a robot.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kirk's having sex with his green woman, who, by the way, is played by Rachel Nichols. She's from G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra. If any of you guys have seen that, it's not a great movie, but hey.
I was just don't give a shit.
Hey man, it was a $200 million movie, okay? Obviously I had to watch it because it was not great.
You know how many people looked up the budget for that? You and the people that lost money on it.
Yeah, probably. You know what? You're not wrong.
That's fucking great.
Uhura walks in. She takes off her clothes. Okay, fine. We have to make him look sexy. Uhura walks in, and Kirk overhears that a Klingon armada was destroyed. And at this point, I just wrote, Uhura is hot. The Kobayashi Maru scene. I love this scene, man. Pine's great here. Like, I just love his overconfidence, and like he should be overconfident, but like he's just so smug
about knowing that he's gonna win this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I love they're locking weapons on us. That's okay.
What's interesting about this is there's apparently a scene, I think in it might have been the second Star Wars. God damn it! Like the second Star Trek, because that's Wrath of Khan. And in it, there's William Shatner eating an apple as they're going through this kind of like thing. And J.J. Abrams. Well, J.J. Abrams is like, that's not intentional. He's like, I've always just heard that if you have somebody in this stressful situation just acting chill and just eating something, that's like the chillest thing you can do while something terrible is going on. Because like to have any kind of appetite shows that just how calm you are. I was like, oh, that's actually really fucking smart. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, dude, I just wrote in my notes that he cheats the Kobayashi Maru and he eats an apple to look even more like an asshole.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does cheat this, right? Because the power goes down, it comes back up.
He cheats it. He hacks it. Yeah. This is him cheating it. So like when they do in the next scene when they do the disciplinary hearing, like that actually is him cheating it. So yeah, it turns out the test was created by Spock, and then we get a disciplinary session run by Tyler Perry, which is weird.
I feel so comfortable knowing that the galaxy's in Tyler Perry's hands.
Me too. By the way, this is also his actual first film role. That's not, his own little independent movie.
And somehow he made 18 movies in the next 3 years.
Oh my God. Medea goes to jail.
Yeah,
Medea files her taxes.
Medea Scared Stupid, The Talented Mr. Medea, like just all these fucking different movies.
He pops up in like the most random but really great movies. Like, okay, for me, I love this movie, right? But Gone Girl, and he's also in Vice, the one with fucking Dick Cheney.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. He plays Colin Powell.
I fucking knew it, dude. I was going to say, what did they get him playing Colin Powell? And I'm like, of course they did.
Yeah. But this scene says a lot about Kirk. It says that he doesn't believe in no-win scenarios, and like I do love this interplay because the chemistry between Spock and Kirk is fantastic in this. I love these two together. It's great. Like it comes into it a lot later, and I don't think there's enough of it in this movie, but I do think it's great. Spock says that Kirk of all people should know that a captain cannot cheat death, and that the test is supposed to make you feel fear in the face of certain death. Jesus Christ. The disciplinary session is interrupted by a distress call from Vulcan, and this is where what I like about this movie is that there's no like Shut up, man. It's obviously going to be a suck fest for me.
No, I'm thinking like it'd be funny if it showed what Tyler Perry was reading on there, and it was like a text message form, and it was like, "You up?" He's like, "I have to go."
He's like the fate of the universe is at risk, but I gotta get some booty. Oh man. But yeah, we get to the shuttle bay. They didn't assign Kirk to a ship.
I gotta live long and prosper.
Oh yeah. Well, do they know that? Oh well, I guess they do because they are Vulcan. But
No, it's a sexual thing.
Oh,
Like that's what he. Just keep going. God, you always embarrass me.
hilarious. Who invited this guy?
It's like Danny dying on a battlefield, and so him goes through. It's like, go, Danny!
He's like, okay.
The battlefield of dead jokes. You're right there, Ginger?
Oh, yeah, it's just, man, I was drinking water right when you said, like, the Arlington of our shitty bad jokes, and I fucking just started joking.
Oh, man. They didn't assign Kirk to a ship because he's grounded, and McCoy ends up helping Kirk begrudgingly. And Uhura is pissed that she didn't get assigned to the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. She speaks to Spock because they're fucking.
Yeah, dude, I didn't catch that until way later on. Like after she goes into the elevator with him, like I kind of got that they were like closer, like closer than any of these other characters are. But I think that was kind of a cool revelation to me later on. I didn't see that coming, just because
I hold it.
Yeah. I thought it was cool. They kind of held that back because this you could easily. It's really the only romantic element in the movie, and I think it's cool that it doesn't take so much of a forefront. They could have pushed it a lot harder and started it a lot sooner, but they didn't, and I like that actually. I think that's one of the cooler parts of the movie.
I think the line that kind of gives it away is when Spock's like, it was an attempt to avoid favoritism. Like that might be something that gives it away, but that's only if you kind of already know. Like that's
right. Yeah. See, I took that as just like, oh, so she's one of the best ones, and they don't want to think that he's just always giving her the best shit because she's one of the best ones.
Yeah.
And McCoy keeps injecting Kirk with weird shit.
He's like, stop it.
But yeah, he's able to get Kirk onto the shuttle via some admin bullshit. And I love the reveal of Starfleet HQ and the Enterprise. Like the effects are outstanding, and the music, just the way it flares up. It's great. It's awesome.
For sure.
And then we get we're in the Enterprise. We meet Sulu and Chekhov. So Sulu is played by John Cho, obviously of Harold and Kumar fame. But if you guys haven't already, check out a movie that just came out called Searching. Matt and I talked about it on the upcoming attractions. That is fantastic. And, John Cho is definitely a great actor in that movie. But the person I really want to talk about is Anton Yelchin as Chekhov.
Yeah.
Dude,
poor guy, man.
This guy passed away at the age of 27 in 2016, and the way he passed away is it's insane.
Car pinned him against his driveway after it fell out of gear. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a freak accident. After he exited his car, it was a Jeep Grand Cherokee. The vehicle rolled back down his driveway, which is on a steep incline, and it trapped him against a pillar and a security fence. And in a lawsuit that followed, Jeep recognized that the Cherokee models had a flaw in their gear shift design, and that there had been a high number of unusual rollaway incidents. So it kind of like sparked this whole recall, I guess, which is insane.
See, and I'd even heard that he was stopped. I think he was getting his mail, and it was a Jeep, right? I think, and it rolled back on him and killed him. But that his recall notice was in the mail, not that he was not that he was physically getting right then, but that it was in the system, like it was on the way to him.
That's eerie.
Right. And it sucks because this is a kid who everyone's like, oh yeah, what is this, like Star Trek and Fright Night? He's in fucking Hearts in Atlantis back in the day with Anthony Hopkins, which is it's based off a Stephen King novel. It's really, really, really fucking good if you've never seen it. But it made me sad, man, because like this guy's only like a year younger than me. We're only about a year off, and I was like, man, here's this guy, prime of his life, making all these great movies. He's fucking Chekhov.
Big movies.
Yeah,
big
like,
he's in Terminator. He plays fucking Kyle Reese.
God, did he do anything, like did he do Beyond or Into Darkness? Was he alive for any of those? Okay.
He passed away in 2016, so he wouldn't have been able to for Beyond. Oh, maybe no, he wasn't. He was in Into Darkness. Actually, no, he wasn't Beyond. Sorry, fuck, I'm losing my mind. But yeah, he wasn't Beyond. Yeah, so
was he?
Yeah, he finished off the trilogy.
Oh.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, speaking of which, by the way, Colin, you mentioned earlier that Star Wars is bigger now than Star Trek. You're definitely correct, because as you know, the past two movies of Star Wars have been pretty criticized. You know, they have their fans. I love them both. Last Jedi and Solo. But Star Trek 4, it was announced literally just 2 days ago that it's been shelved permanently.
Oh.
Yeah. So this they call this the Kelvin timeline. So the fourth one in this Kelvin timeline has been shelved. So that's I guess the popularity of Star Trek right now. But it's doing well on TV. Apparently Star Trek Discovery is fantastic. So it is still chugging along though. Yeah. But yeah, man, Anton Yelchin, every time I see this kid, I just kind of like it hits me. I'm like, this guy was super young. But yeah, course laid in, which is obviously a very Star Trek thing. Love the sound design of the ships just warping away. And the Enterprise stalls. Spock tells Sulu to disengage the external dampener. And yeah, sure, it's a little convenient that this happens, so they arrive late. Like, this has to happen. It is a little convenient. What do you think, Colin? Fucking hail of the episode.
Sorry, say it again.
So you know how they stall before they go to warp?
Yeah, I actually didn't mind this part. I actually thought it was pretty funny, because we're so used to, set phasers to stun and jump to warp drive and blah blah, and to see that kind of like stall a little bit, I thought I don't know. I thought it was great comedic relief, because this movie does have a lot of comedic stuff, and I mean a lot of it doesn't work for me, but this is one of the few things that did, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. Especially, it's like, have you ever piloted anything before? He's like, yes, sir. Like it seems like such an amateur mistake. I was like, that's fucking hilarious.
I love that it's Spock that's like correcting him, and I love like when he kind of like rolls his eyes and he's like, oh fuck this guy already.
Yes, yeah. Spock is like the Hermione Granger at Hogwarts.
Right. But yeah, punch it and Chekhov 5-5 Victor 2.
Yeah, dude, some of that shit is so over the top. Like, come on, dude. Like, it is,
but I think it might have been in the original. I'm not sure.
Dude, just in Soviet Russia, U.S. Enterprise not come to you. Like his shit was so fucking thick. Like, at one point he's just like skinning potatoes for vodka. Like, come on, dude. God damn it. Like, I just wanted to.
At one point, there's just like haggis hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah. In Soviet Russia, I was in Gulag.
my good friend Reznov.
Oh, fucking hell. Black Ops 2, 1, 2, 3. I did all 3. Fucking hell.
Look at the newest Russian car crash compilation video I posted on YouTube.
One nipple. Two nipple. 3 nipple. Oh shit! I gotta get out of here.
I actually 3 nipple. I actually, dude, I watch some of those car crashing fails sometimes, and they're always fucking Russian, dude. That is so fucking funny you said that. I've been watching those like crazy.
Kirk overhears Chekhov talking on the PA system about the lightning storm in space and wants to stop the ship because they're flying into a trap. And then we see this massive laser drill digging into Vulcan, and Nero is told that the Federation ships are on their way.
Right, yeah.
Kirk tells Pike that they have to stop the ship. So there are moments in this movie that still give me goosebumps, and this sequence is one of them.
Yeah, you're panicking with them.
Yeah, like
and the whole reason they were, in an almost cliche way, paused earlier, immediately comes to fruition when they come out of this, right?
Right, like the way Abrams builds this up, like they're just kind of arguing. I love Spock and Kirk arguing. Kirk says that there's an attack by the Romulans, and it's not a rescue mission. And he's like to Pike, I read your dissertation. You know all about this, like what happened on the day my father died. And then I just love, the stakes just kind of ramping up, right? Like they've lost all contact with the other ships. They've, and basically Pike is convinced. And I get a boner every time Pike's like, shields up, red alert, and then they come out of warp, and that sound effects of them coming out of warp, and they're all just like, it pulls out, and you just see the ship like maneuvering, and Pike's just like emergency evasives. It's fantastic. I love this moment. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah.
I thought this was cool. I actually, like you said earlier, I think Pike is one of the standout parts of this. He definitely is more of like the Yoda kind of older. Like he strikes me as, I know this is going to be a weird comparison, but you guys have obviously seen Shawshank Redemption, right?
Yeah,
at some point. Okay.
We just watched that over a Christmas break.
Fucking great. One of the best movies of all time. But what Pine or not Pine? God damn it. The guy who's captain right now, is it Pine? Isn't it like, because see, when I say Pine, I'm thinking Chris Pine. I'm not thinking like the actual like captain of it. But like I love the captain of this ship just because it's just because his relationship kind of reminds me of like the older Andy Dufresne, and then Tommy is like Kirk's character, like the younger brash kind of, and you need someone who's intelligent, but at the same time he's got a lot of heart and like a lot of fire to him, because earlier on when he's talking to him, he's like, yeah, your dad was one of the best captains, blah blah blah, and he never thought of a no-win situation. And then later on, as you can tell that James Kirk is a little bit more resilient, about being, compared to his father. He's kind of like, yeah, I dare you to try to go do something. Like he's kind of got a little push to him. He's not this like old guy who you can push over and, oh, I remember the good times. He's like, no, you're wasting your fucking life. He's like, you could do a lot more than that. I'm like, that's cool. I like that. He's pushing him like it's kind of like just positive criticism, I guess. I like that a lot. He's got an old kind of wisdom to him, but he looks like he'd really throw a punch. Like looks like he could fuck you up a little bit.
Yeah. He's got some really cool. He's got a cool sequence in the second one, especially where he talks to Kirk in a bar, and is like exactly what you said, Colin. Like he's kind of got this like positive but negative push to Kirk.
Officer Pike. See, I kept wanting to say Pine because of Chris Pine. Officer Pike. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, Pike. You did say Pike literally seconds before that.
I think I said Pine. I thought I fucked it up. Either way, whatever. Whatever. They basically warp into a graveyard. Like this is awesome, man. Just the maneuvering. Yeah. The Narada flies on the Enterprise and starts fucking them up. And Spock tells Pike that the signal from the drill is blocking their transporter abilities. And Nero recognized the Enterprise. He hails the Enterprise and tells Pike that he doesn't speak for the Empire. He recognizes Spock, but tells him that they're not acquainted yet. And Nero wants Pike to come aboard the Narada for, air quotes, negotiations. Not unlike what happened to Captain Ribot at the start of the movie, right? What's the name of your ship? The Guantanamo Bay. That's what it's called.
The USS Enhanced Interrogations.
Yeah. What is that syringe you're putting on my neck? It's freedom. Be quiet.
Oh, dude. If you think that's hilarious, you got to check out Vice. It's fucking awesome.
Oh, man. That fucking movie does look great. Like, Dick Cheney has had a insane life, man. Like, I mean, whether or not you agree with all that shit, what an interesting life, All
I can say is watch it. Like, the movie is fantastic.
I fucking love Sam Rockwell.
Oh, yeah. He's great, isn't he?
Why do we sound like Bill Clinton right now?
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. But anyway, we're fucking idiots. Miro tells his boy to prepare the red matter, and Pike tells him that they have to space jump from the shuttle, destroy and disable the drill, and get back to the USS Enterprise. Kirk is promoted to first officer, and Spock is promoted to captain. By the way, oh no, go, Colin.
Well, I was just going to say this will probably hit most home for Danny, but doesn't Nero's second in command kind of look like Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park with a shaved head? Like, as I looked at it, I can see that. I was like, Chester, and another, unfortunately, very, very, very young death. I know I was a big fan of them growing up. Danny's kind of the one who got me into them. But this whole thing, I could just see Chester Bennington in the background of being one of these guys, and nobody would ever pick up on it,
Being like, oh no, there's phasers down or something like that.
Yeah.
The guy that plays the second in command, like the character's name is AL, but he's played by Clifton Collins Jr., so he's been in a few things. He's been in Westworld, he's been in Pacific Rim, he's been in I can't even tell you another movie that you guys would know because you don't watch fucking Westworld.
Pacific Rim was the last thing you said that I would have known him from.
Okay, well, whatever. But yeah, he's good, man. I like him. But he's...
Dude, this dropout sequence of them falling down that tether is badass.
Yeah, remember when I talked about goosebump moments? This is another one. Pike tells them that they have to space jump from the shuttle, destroy and disable the drill. And dude, I wrote here, Engineer Olsen is a weirdo. Like, I can't wait to kick some Romulan ass. Like, all right.
Like, he's just so excited.
He's just so fucking keen.
To be fair, everybody should have seen this death coming because what color is he wearing?
Red.
Like, it's funny because like in my notes, this is where I wrote down like they all suit up in their Go-Go Power Ranger armor because like it looks like I'm not gonna lie, I was a huge Power Rangers fan growing up. I watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Neo, Power Rangers Turbo, and then there was like Lost in Space, and that's kind of what these suits remind me of. I was like, this reminds me of that weird fifth season where they're all aliens.
What kind of combat training do you have? Fencing.
And of course, they give the Asian dude a katana. I was like, fuck you.
All right.
It's like the first thing they gave him was a chopstick, and he's like, hey, fuck you, dude. I'm not using this shit.
See, but you know what it is? It's also kind of like one of those things where they're trying to tell you that this is not the character that you know. Like, this is not just the fucking pilot. Like, this is this guy is like proficient. It's one of those reboot things, right?
Right. They're kind of, they're also giving them a little bit more backstory, you know, like with Zoe Saldana's character, they tell her that she's proficient in all these different languages and stuff. It's like, that's cool. So they're not just like, oh, she stands over here and looks pretty and presses buttons. It's like, no, she actually does something on the fucking show, dude.
Exactly. But yeah, man, the space jump. Holy shit. The build up to this is fantastic. And man, the space jump itself is brilliant. I love how the music just drops out and it's just their breathing. And then you get like these like little bits of like sound. So the whooshing of the drill as they go past it. And again, the breathing, but like just this, like the way the camera like pulls back and then it zooms in on them as they're flying down. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially the tops of their helmets blacking.
Yeah.
It's like they're like, I was like, God, that's fucking cool. Like I've said it 1,000 times. I love battle damaged armor looking stuff. It's like, oh, that's fucking cool, man. One thing just randomly too, that I also like, I like the vulnerability of these ships. It always seems like when you're watching like the original Star Trek or Next Gen or Deep Space Nine or Voyager or whatever, that these ships take so much damage, but you never see anybody having to repair them. You never see these explosions, like, and you actually see it in this. Like, they're very vulnerable. You're flying a big, a
tin can.
Giant, you're a big tin can with something explosive strapped to the back of it, and you're actually kind of vulnerable. And that's one of the cool things about this movie that I liked. I wish they could take a little bit more damage, but I do like the fact that they aren't invincible. I thought that was cool.
It's awesome. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
There is a similar scene to this in Into Darkness. So that's obviously the sequel. Basically, they they suit up in another piece of fucking Power Ranger armor and they go through like this space. It's kind of cool, but again, man, this is a scene that it's one of the standouts for the series for me. Just the build of it, man, and like the way the music drops out, it's just fantastic.
Go Spock and Shatner.
Dun, 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 dun. Kirk and Sulu pull their chute, but Olsen, the asshole, is having too much trouble. He's having too much fun and he pulls too late, bounces off the surface of the drill and straight into the drill beam. See ya.
I would laugh if someone's like, oh, by the way, he was blind. I don't know why he was jumping in. It's a terrible idea.
Did you guys let Frank jump? He's been medically blind for 7 years.
He has a fucking seeing eye dog, for fuck's sake. Can't you see?
They're like, where? The dog goes flying by them in a suit. They're like, oh, shit.
It's like,
we lost
this is
Rover.
usually our time when we do our VR exercises. He loves doing those. Like, he thought that was a game the whole time. They're like, we're going to die. He's like, oh, I'm having a great time.
Kirk and Sulu get into a scuffle with a couple of Romulans. Sulu is badass, man. I like his sword and the way it comes out and shit. Turns out Olsen had the charges, so Kirk and Sulu start firing at the beam, which seems to work, and transporter control is back. At this point, Nero launches the red matter because they've reached the planet's core, and Chekhov says that they're creating a singularity that will consume the planet. Fucking pants-shitting moment right there. Jesus. Spock wants to rescue the Vulcan City Council and his parents. And I dig this sequence, man, of them falling and Chekhov having to kind of beam them up. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's fucking cool. Like, and another thing, this is, again, I think why this reminded me of Man of Steel. These huge ships standing over a planet, firing a beam, like, straight down, like, kind of fucking with the core of it, and, like terraforming, like how they do in Man of Steel. Like, I don't know why. I guess it's just because I watched some of it earlier today, but a lot of this is reminding me of that for some reason, even though I know that this predates Man of Steel by like 3 or 4 years. But there's something about it that reminds me of Man of Steel, something visually, something about a father sending off that son, you know, being like, because that's a big part of this movie. It's just the fact that they're firing this what is it, Red Hatter? Is that what it's called?
Red Matter.
Red Matter. There we go. Red Hatter.
Just like combine the fucking Alice in Wonderland character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're all a little mad down here. But yeah, there's something about that, like these huge machines being above. You know, but you see that in so many movies, but it's just so fresh off my mind because of Man of Steel. But I think they're both fine movies. But like as I'm watching these, I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like I'm just seeing a lot of similarities between the two of them. I might be the only one. It might just be because it's fresh in my brain. I don't know.
That, yeah, I didn't see any of that. But look, you know, now that you're mentioning it, I can see where it's coming from. But I think I don't compare the two at all.
It's like you can see where it's coming from, but you had to have watched it in the last like 48 hours. You know,
exactly. Just because I think Man of Steel beats you over the head with it by the end of it, and you're just kind of like exhausted. Whereas I think this kind of does a bit of a better job.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you look at Metropolis and Man of Steel, and it's like, dude, okay, this place literally is like 100 feet below sea level now because you guys have fucked it up bad.
You said you look at Metropolis, and I'm like, I can't look at Metropolis because it's fucking gone.
Yeah, it's fucking just destroyed, man.
Spock beams down and rescues the council, and dude, why the fuck are they praying? Like, there is like the ground is shaking beneath you, and you're standing here. Like, leave. Like Spock says later, I know at least 10,000 of us have survived. So that means that some people must have gotten off the planet, right? So why not these guys? Like, why not leave?
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I didn't know if it was some kind of like Vulcan nobility thing, like we don't abandon our post. Like, I wasn't really sure because what I really expected was Spock to go in there, and then Winona Ryder and everybody else in the council be like, no, this is our fate. This is what this is what we're here to do. You know, there's not enough time to make it. Blah blah blah. Like them kind of resigning themselves to their fate. It was just so funny because as soon as he shows up, they're like, yeah, fuck God, let's get out of here. Like they just take off after him. They're like, oh, thank God this guy showed up.
Yeah, it's like.
Did anybody talk about leaving before we got here? And then they're all looking at each other.
Did you book a ticket off the planet? I told you.
It makes me think of now.
Whose Uber is this?
Somebody call for a lift. Danny, do you watch Rick and Morty? I know you do, Zoe.
No, but it's on Amanda and I's watch list.
Dude, there's a great episode where Rick is falling through just time and it's just ending and he's like, I'm okay with this. You do good, Morty. You know, be a scientist, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm okay with this. I can accept that. And he sees this machine that's like a collar that he needs to get out. And he sees it. He's like, I'm okay. And then he sees the thing and he's like, I'm not okay. I don't want to die. And he like flies to it. He fixes the collar, straps it on and goes, oh, yes, thank you. Fuck you, God. And fucking disappears. That's all this reminded me of was him being like, Hyundai. And he's like, hey, I can get you guys out of here. They're like, all right, peace out, God. We'll see you later.
Fucking later's God. I'll catch you later, mate. Bye. But yeah, so Chekhov isn't quick enough to beam all of them up. Spock loses his mother. I guess they just couldn't afford Winona Ryder anymore, but whatever.
No, that's exactly why.
Yeah, probably. Dude, I fucking love this shot of Vulcan being consumed and the Enterprise just flying away. Oh, it's awesome. And yeah, man, that's the end of Vulcan. I am now a member of the endangered species. Love that line. And Uhura wants Spock to let it out, but Spock's Vulcan half wins out, and he says he has to continue his duty. Guys, what do you say we take a break around here? This is about halfway.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Fucking awesome, guys. We will be right back. Hey guys, it's Zoheb just breaking in the middle here. We've got a few things that we just wanted to put out there for any newcomers, or if you're not part of our growing community, maybe this could benefit you too. Firstly, we just wanted to let the newbies know about our episodes and the way Midnight Double Feature is currently structured. As you know, right now you're listening to one of our feature presentations. When we started the podcast, we basically built the show around our feature presentations. These are movies that we choose to cover and basically go through everything in the movie that's worth talking about sequentially. These episodes are generally longer, and we're definitely looking at options to spice up our feature presentations by getting guests on, very much like LSG Media's Matt Anderson in our Get Out feature presentation. We also have our upcoming attraction episodes. Typically these come out during the week and are much shorter than our feature presentations. These are hosted by Matt Vella and basically consist of a conversation between Matt and I about any movie news that's worth talking about, quick reviews of movies that are currently out in the cinemas, and other hijinks. Finally, we have our special features. These are usually one-off special episodes that are mostly experimental and don't really have any specific definition. They could be a sit-down with a cast or crew member, a conversation between the hosts, or just a straight-up different thing that might not even relate to film. Before I let you get back to the episode, I just wanted to thank our listeners and supporters. We definitely couldn't have done any of this without your guys' constant support. If, for some reason, you're not a part of our growing community, head to our socials. We've got 2 pages on Facebook, Midnight Double Feature, which is our main page and has our formal announcements, and we also have the After Party, which is where we post memes, news, and teasers of what's next to come on Midnight Double Feature. We're also on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and Twitter, which is at MDF Pod. Thanks again for listening, guys. Back to the show. Hey, you guys, we're back, freshly squeezed. Hey, you guys, how you guys doing? Colin, Danny, welcome back.
Hello.
Hey.
I fucking knew it. It fucking happens every fucking time. You know what? Next time I'm just going to say one at a time, but whatever. We're diving back into Star Trek 2009, J.J. Abrams Star Trek. And we're at the scene where Nero tortures Pike. Basically, he needs the subspace frequencies for Starfleet's border protection grids surrounding Earth. This is basically, we get like half of Nero's story. Nero tells Pike that he prevented genocide. He was off planet while the Federation did nothing, while Romulus was destroyed. He wanted to prevent the destruction of Romulus and create a Romulus free of the Federation. And this is where we get the Centaurian slugs, which is disgusting. I love Nero holding up the slug to Pike. Frequencies, please, sir. Like, Banner's cool here. I like Banner here.
Yeah. He's fun. It's just forgettable.
Yeah, it's not a great villain, but like Eric Banner's performance is great. Even like especially later when he's just like fire everything. Like I dig it. I dig those moments, and like when he's like Spock.
I don't want to go past the one scene, I think right before they interrogate him, of Spock and God, I'm just gonna keep saying Gamora. God damn it. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, that's why Uhura, Gamora. Like I keep wanting to say it. Spock and Uhura in the elevator where she's telling him, basically, what do you need? Like, are you okay? He's like, I need everyone, doing what they're doing. It's like, damn, that's fucking cool. I do like that scene.
Yeah, no, it is cool to see him kind of like fighting between his two kind of like I guess natures. Like he's got the human side that's the emotional part of him, and then he's got the Vulcan side that's the more logical, like let's press down and keep doing our duty part of him. Yeah, like I love that he's kind of like battling with those two things, and it doesn't come out till later. Like the full on human emotion part of it. It's cool, man. Like that's the part of the story that I like. Like
yeah, it probably would have been boring if he was just too robotic, like the way that I think those are supposedly supposed to be. If he's like full, like Vulcan is always very logical and probably very not entertaining to watch. Right. Probably for 2 hours, right? So it makes him a lot more relatable and a lot more fun to watch,
and even just more interesting as a character, like someone who's like wrestling with this internal debate. Like I dig that shit.
Right.
So we're back to the Enterprise.
Like one other thing, like it's interesting you point that out. Like, it's not like there's a lot of his race left to really be upset with him if he didn't really confine like to those Vulcan ways. He's still trying to like uphold it out of pride. It's just really says a lot about his character. Sure.
Yes, I think Spock was really well written in this movie, man. Like he's great. We're back at the Enterprise, out of the chair. Spock theorizes that Nero is from the future. and Spock wants to gather with Starfleet, but Kirk says that they have to be unpredictable and catch up with the Narada. And Spock says that an alternate reality has occurred. Their destinies have changed. At this moment, you're like, okay, so this is not a prequel. So at this moment, I did read in the trivia, a lot of like fans kind of like got a bit upset because they're like, so this isn't the way that things really happened in the past of Star Trek that they've been told, like in subsequent Star Trek movies, right?
Yeah, I've heard from one Star Trek fan that I used to work with. He was a little older than me, but he read a lot of the books. That continuity is like really, really important to the whole Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
Like if a book comes out, if anything comes out with Star Trek's name on there, it's like either is perfect continuity or it can't get released.
Right.
So the fact that this came out and that it honored that is, I could see how that would probably upset people that are really big fans about stuff like
Right,
this.
yeah, but I mean, that's not to say that none of that continuity happened. Like, because it sure as shit
Right.
did. Like, this is a whole different thing.
That's what I'm
It's
trying
like,
to say.
yeah.
This has to be established as well.
Like, I think of it like in Back to the Future 2, you know, when when Doc draws that alternate timeline of 1985, and he's like, Marty, this is where we are, 1985, and like basically it's 1988 instead of like just going to shit, but yeah. So Spock and Kirk argue. Spock does the Vulcan nerve pinch, which obviously is a Vulcan thing, and orders Kirk to be jettisoned from the ship. And Kirk wakes up on Delta Vega. He's chased by a creature. This reminds me of the Phantom Menace. There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. Pretty lucky he lands on the same planet as Spock. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's fucking incredible.
But you know what? Here's the thing. So Nero chose that planet for Spock to be marooned on so he can see Vulcan, and they're not far from Vulcan, so you can assume it's the closest planet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there we go. See? Fucking got ya. Yeah, you little bitch.
This is what's over here, everybody.
Kirk runs into a cave and is rescued by Spock Prime, played by the late, great Leonard Nimoy. I just wrote, I love this man.
Cue applause.
I have always been and always... I've been and always shall be your friend. Love that. Abrams said that it was surreal to work with Nimoy, saying that this guy has been doing it for 40 years. And I guess that would be like totally intimidating.
Yeah. How do you critique a character that's been developed longer than you've probably been alive?
Right. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. That's one of the things they said about Simon Pegg was J.J. Abrams actually just emailed Simon Pegg.
Right.
And it was like, hey, do you want to be a part of this movie? He's like, I would have paid to have been a part of the movie.
Right.
He's like, I mean, I was like...
Yeah, if someone said like, hey, can you work on Star Wars? I'd be like, I'll be homeless for that. That's okay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Don't pay me.
And I think it's interesting because Pegg's been in both Star Trek and Star Wars. So,
well, that's thanks to, yours truly at the director's
right,
side here.
of course. And like, I think it's also important to remember that like the only movie that J.J. Abrams had made before this was Mission Impossible 3. Like, he was a big TV guy. Like, he obviously did Lost. He did Alias. He was always a big TV guy. But yeah, this was his big first break. And man, this is a hell of a first break, because this is like obviously backed by Steven Spielberg as well, who pushed him to direct this movie. But yeah, I love that it's Spock who convinces Kirk that Spock is actually a good person, but he needs to tap into his emotional side. Like, it's kind of like this whole, if you think about it too hard, this whole timeline thing, then it kind of falls apart. But I do like that it's himself giving like Kirk the tip on how to act. It's great. Spock tells Kirk about Nero, so this is where we get a little bit of exposition. He does the
and I love the pacing in the movie right here. Just to point that out, like, that's great how it cuts back and forth. Feels very Star Wars, so it's almost like incidentally kind of warm up for him going to eventually do Star Wars a little years down the road.
Absolutely. Spock does the Vulcan mind meld on Kirk. 129 years from now, a star will explode. Spock promises Nero that Romulus will be saved, but the supernova destroys Romulus. Spock shoots the red matter into the black hole, and Nero and Spock are both pulled in. Again, awesome fucking visuals of both ships being pulled in from both sides of the black hole. Like, I love that shit. Nero waited 25 years while Spock waited seconds. Dude, I always liked the time dilation thing of black holes. Like, Interstellar does this really well. Yeah.
That's a great way to explain it. Super simple, and then you're just like, oh,
hell yeah. Yeah, if you want to get into more of that, man, Interstellar does this fantastically, because obviously that goes into like the whole theory of relativity. Like, you know, if you're down on a planet, basically they come back and like the guy on the spaceship's aged like 80 years while they've been down there for like an hour. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I remember that he said one of the parts, the whole plots of Interstellar that I did really like about that movie was how he said how their entire plan and how confident they acted when he said, while you guys are down there investigating the planet, it's not going to take you guys very long, but by the time you come back, it'll have been like 20 years or 10 years. He goes, and I'll have figured out the formula by then. And you're like, dude, that's crazy. Like, that's a scientist ambition. And then they come back 20 years later and they're like, did you finish it out? And I think he of course, I think he does, right? He's like, yeah, it was a couple years ago. I think I got it. And then I've just been tweaking or something. That is a cool way to perceive time in these movies without having to like wheel a chalkboard out and be like, okay, and then draw a bunch of lines and use big words.
Exactly. It's awesome. Spock tells Kirk in the future that Kirk knew his father and saw him becoming captain of the Enterprise, which is awesome. And back on the Enterprise, Spock speaks to McCoy, and McCoy basically questions Spock about whether sending Kirk away was a logical decision. Are you out of your Vulcan mind?
You're right. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that was the audience laughing moment for our theory.
And we come back to Spock Prime and Kirk, who come upon a Starfleet outpost, and we meet Keensa and Scotty, played by Simon Pegg. How much did you lose your mind, Colin?
I did, man. My spirit animal, Simon Pegg. What's actually really interesting is that in Kentucky in November, they're doing another SuperCon that I actually just went to, the one last year. But Nick Frost is going to be there. So like we're going to get our do the whole photo op thing with him and shit like that. And that's blowing my mind to think that I'm going to meet someone like Nick Frost, who's like one of my idols. Really. I mean, like one of my favorite actors in a movie. And I couldn't imagine being on a set working with Simon Pegg on like Star Trek, even though I'm not a big Star Trek fan. Like there's something about Simon Pegg that I've always really liked. You know, he reminds me a lot of like Adam Savage from Mythbusters, like that kind of like, not just because he's ginger, but just this like kind of like 40-year-old man who acts like a child, but it's not like he's immature. He's just like a man child, you know, and he loves this stuff, and he can juggle, you know, doing stuff like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and even his other stuff like How to Lose Friends and Alienate People and Run Fat Boy Run, and then turn around and do shit like The World's End and fill out that trilogy, and then do Star Trek and Star Wars, Mission Impossible, and it's like, damn, dude, like the guy's such a great actor. But he's got some great quotes about like being a fanboy of something, and he's like, being a fanboy is never having to admit that you're embarrassed because you love something that much, and that's always really resonated with me. That's why I especially film. That's why I wanted to start doing this podcast. Like shit like that is so inspiring. So I love Simon Pegg, and he's one of the best parts of this movie for me, because I did know the character of Scotty like a little bit. I did remember, I've given her all she's got, Captain. I remembered that very well. So it's awesome because I know how much this means to Simon Pegg, and that makes me appreciate his role even more.
Right. As you were saying that, man, like for you it's Simon Pegg, for me it's Kevin Smith. They're basically the same person. Like they're both man children. They both have the whole they're both kind of like champions of like of nerddom pretty much.
Yeah.
And you know, some
ambassadors of that culture,
right.
almost.
And Simon Pegg's got the whole, you know, don't be afraid of leaning into nerd culture, whereas Kevin Smith's like, you know, if you want to do something, then start now and just like go straight into that shit, man. Like that's like, for you it was Simon Pegg that helped you start the podcast. For me it was Kevin Smith, and they're basically the same fucking person. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, right. Both writers, both actors, everything.
Hell yeah. So Spock recognizes Scotty, saying that he invents transwarp beaming. The notion of transwarp beaming is like trying to hit a bullet with a smaller bullet while wearing a fuck, I fucked it up. Whilst wearing a blindfold, riding a horse.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's a terrible Scottish accent.
I know.
Oh, that wasn't it. You weren't trying, were you?
No, I wasn't. I don't think I was. It's fine.
Okay.
No, not at all.
But I love how it's kind of like, you know, telling the audience like how fucking hard it is, like how hard it is to beam someone on while they're in warp.
Yeah, think about being under all that pressure and having to make a decision, like, you know, all that calculation to get that correct.
Right. Spock gives Scotty the equation for transwarp beaming, and Spock tells Kirk that it's not his destiny to come with them, and that Spock shouldn't be the actual Spock shouldn't be made aware of the existence of Spock Prime. Spock tells Kirk about Starfleet Regulation 619, not the Rey Mysterio move, the actual regulation. That one's for Patrick Harrington if you're listening.
Yeah.
Is that a wrestling thing?
I don't know much about wrestling, but I do know that.
You guys posting your weird oily man pictures in the after party and wrestling.
I don't watch any wrestling, but I know that. That's all I know.
Okay.
I love how you're like, oh, okay, sure, I don't believe you.
I'm having a hard time believing
Trust
you.
me, man.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Colin's fucking over there writhing.
I'm literally just like slamming my head into my keyboard.
So Starfleet Regulation 619, which says that any captain who is emotionally compromised by the mission at hand must resign said command. So in effect, Kirk has to emotionally compromise Spock and get him to show it, which is awesome. And I just think it's fucking great writing, man. Like the one thing that
definitely.
Spock can't do and hasn't been able to do, Kirk has to do it. And it's Spock that's telling him in the first place. Oh, I love it. They take off, live long and prosper. Love you, Leonard Nimoy. By the way, Leonard, do you know what Leonard Nimoy's last film appearance was?
No.
Kind of sad and kind of heartbreaking. It was Transformers 3.
That sucks.
Yeah. Scotty and Kirk beam to the Enterprise, and Scotty gets stuck in the tubes. This is my least favorite part of the movie because it just goes on for way too long.
Yeah, it feels like a Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory problem.
Like I get that the bridge has to get the notification that there's been unauthorized access, but this goes for ages. Like I'm like, I don't need this.
Right.
Yeah.
And
just him being lost through the tubes just gives me this like.
Right, exactly. And then you get the iconic set phases to stun. And fucking, of course.
Hey, did you see what they did there? You see what they did there?
I don't know if I did. I missed it.
Set phasers. Did you get that?
I missed it. Well,
did you get that? you want to come pick me up?
Well, I mean, but okay. So in Star Wars, the original one, when the stormtroopers are like set blasters to stun or whatever, like when they stun like Leia, is that a reference? It's gotta be.
I don't know. I'm not like I would assume it's probably lifted from it just because the show was out way before. Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure they kind of lifted it from that. But who knows? You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that either. As the official Star Wars ambassador for this channel, I don't know the answer to that.
Dude, are you serious? We can fight. Let's fight.
Over being the ambassador?
Yeah. Zoe, you will die.
I'm probably gonna lose this. I know I am. Fuck this.
I don't want to have to clean that mess up.
I'm backing out.
Danny will double Sith Marauder your ass. I swear to fucking God, dude. Like,
but yeah, man. I love this scene with Spock and Kirk. And I love Scotty. I'd rather not take sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, man. Like this whole scene of like eliciting the emotion. Like I think this is fantastic. Like both actors are fantastic here, especially Zachary Quinto. Kirk's like, you feel nothing. It must not even compute for you. You never loved her. And Spock just stomps Kirk's ass.
Snaps.
He fucking destroys him. And I love that it's like, because I don't anymore, but I used to read Empire, you know, the magazine Empire.
Yeah.
And I just remember like this, like them doing like a feature on this movie. And I remember like reading an interview from Zachary Quinto, and it was like, this is not the Spock that you know. And like, you don't associate Spock with violence or like, you know, fucking hand-to-hand combat. But man, when he stomps Kirk's ass here, it's like, holy fuck, this guy can throw down.
Yeah. Yeah, and you think about that, he had kind of been withholding that the whole time because Kirk had been
pushing him,
getting on his nerves, pushing him around. He's definitely pushing his nerves, which can't be easy even, you know, as a Vulcan, I'm sure, in that culture. So pretty cool that he finally just makes him snap and puts him in his place, so to speak.
For sure.
Half Vulcan, you fucking muggle.
Spock doesn't have the ambition that Kirk does, but he makes up for that by having this like level of intelligence and tenacity without having to use it necessarily.
Sure. Spock concedes that he's emotionally compromised and he retires. And basically Kirk sits in the captain's chair and takes command as acting captain. And dude, this was in the trailer, and the trailer just played this up so much, and I loved it in the movie as well. But like, it's kind of iconic. It's pretty iconic. Like just Kirk sitting in the captain's chair, like officially for the first time. Yeah. It's awesome.
And almost like just that real comfy look.
Yeah. Yeah, but
it looked, just the chair fits him. Right. I'm saying.
I love,
dude. Oh, sorry. I was going to say the chairs on this bridge are so like when you hit warp, do you just like go like spinning out of the fucking chair? Because like I couldn't imagine hitting whatever speed warp is. I mean, it's going to push your fucking nose into the back of your head, and you're in like a $30 chair from Office Depot. I'm like, dude, I want something I'm like strapped into. I want like Jodie Foster in Contact like kind of shit. Like I don't feel comfortable like just standing here on this thing. I don't know. It's so weird.
If you like dig enough, there's like an explanation, because like, well, light speed is light speed, right? So it's like 3 to the power of like times 10 to the power of 8 or something like that. I can't remember what the speed of light was. Like that's Star Wars.
Precisely. No, gosh, don't you say that every morning?
I remember from physics, because I used to do physics in high school, and I think it is 3 times 10 to the power of 8 or some shit. Like that's the speed of light.
Us Tennesseans don't understand none of that physics talk.
But that's
we hit a switch and light shows up. It's just there.
But that's Star Wars. Like light speed is light speed. I don't know if warp is faster, but like I'm sure there is like some kind of like design of the ship, like even if it's like the shields like protecting you from like the gravity of it, or like the velocity, the G-force.
This answer is much easier than we know it is. It just depends on which one you like more. If you like Star Trek more, then that would probably be faster, right?
For sure. So Spock's father urges him to speak his mind, and Spock says that he feels anger and that he cannot control his anger. And
I was just really hoping he would just start rapping right here.
He just throws down some fucking Eminem.
Now, hi, my name is
Spock. My name is Spock.
Oh god. Spock's father says that that his mother would say, "Do not try to control your anger," and that he married her because he loved her, refuting its only logical argument from before, right? So he tells him the truth here. And this is basically the moment where, Spock jumps back on board and he wants to beam onto the Narada. Kirk wants to come with him. I would cite regulation, but you would simply ignore it.
Yeah.
And the Enterprise stops above Titan. I love every time a ship comes in and out of warp, I fucking love it. This is sound effects, man. In the second one, there's this amazing sequence of like a ship chasing the USS Enterprise while in warp.
Oh,
and like the sound it makes is incredible. But Kirk sees Spock and Uhura hooking up. This is such an awkward moment for him, and Kirk's like, "Thank you, Nyota," and I just love the awkward nod to Uhura. Scotty beams him onto the cargo bay and tells him there shouldn't be a soul in sight. But hey, they get into a gunfight. Some pretty cool gunplay here.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah, there's this is supposed to be a fist fight, but apparently, I think it was Spielberg who said, you've got too many fucking fist fights here. You got to get in gunplay. And Spock mind melds with the stunned Romulan and figures out where the Red Matter and Captain Pike are. Meanwhile, the drill is fucking up San Francisco because, of course, the Golden Gate has to cop some damage. It's a movie, guys. It has to. Hollywood, right? It's got something against the Golden Gate Bridge.
If you ask any American, they'll tell you that anytime the San Francisco Bridge is in danger, we all feel it.
I always wondered why San Francisco cops it in this movie, and the second one too, because in the second one, a massive ship crashes into fucking San Francisco.
And I said earlier, I haven't seen any of the older ones other than the one. I think it's the sixth one. There's a whale involved. Yeah. That is also in San Francisco.
I guess the Starfleet Academy and base was always based out of San Francisco, but yeah, it's weird. It's just always weird.
I've heard there's always been like an unusually high number of like suicides from that bridge. So I pictured just somebody being like, "I'm gonna jump," and then the beam comes down. They're like, "I don't want to die," and they just fucking run.
It just fucking fries him instead.
Yeah, he's like, "Son of a bitch."
Oh man. So Kirk and Spock can't be beamed back because of the active drill, And they jump onto Spock Prime's ship, and the ship recognizes Spock. Oh, and I love Kirk's reaction. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But basically, Spock figures out he figures out what's going on.
Does his ship not remind you a little bit of, what is it, the Slave One? Is that Boba Fett's ship?
Oh, yeah, the upside down one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fucking love that design,
Yeah.
dude. That's badass.
Except this one kind of has this like rotating sphere thing at the back.
Yeah, I kind of like that a little
dig
bit
it.
more, like a geosymmetrical kind of thing going on. It was cool.
It makes
I like that.
Yeah, it makes it pretty memorable. Like it's something you don't really see in a lot of ships in other sci-fi flicks.
Yeah, it makes you kind of like think about it. Does something need to be aerodynamic in space to travel faster? Because those ships almost look like they wouldn't be very, logical to fly.
See, but
that always what makes me think
See, but
about
that doesn't
it.
make sense. Like, this is what I love about sci-fi, because you don't need aerodynamics in space. There's nothing to hold you back.
And I agree. That's why I'm saying those ships can look like that and
yeah.
kind of stick out as still moving in that direction. Because if a plane was that shape and moving direction, you'd go, how would that be logical?
Yeah. Kirk comes across Nero and his boy Aiel, and Nero just fucking pounds Kirk. James T. Kirk was considered to be a great man, but that was another life. I love Eric Bana here. And Spock basically flies down to San Francisco and destroys the drill, and Nero just fucking loses his mind. Spock! He goes back to the bridge. I want Spock dead now. By the way, there's a lot of jumping in this final sequence. There's a lot of jumping around.
I just thought it'd be so funny if he's like, Stella! And he's like, it's not Stella, it's Spock. Spock!
He's got the white singlet on. But Nero does not give a fuck that there's red matter in the ship. I want Spock dead now.
Suicidal.
Yeah, and
No.
Spock dodges the missiles and goes to warp. And I wrote here, I got your gun. And I'm just like, well, good, because this dude was monologuing. Like, your species is even weaker than I expected. I hate this shit. I hate this shit in film, man. Like, where the villain, like, finally has them by the throat, and it's just like they start, like, going on to this tirade.
And then, like, decides to, like, just tell him everything.
Yeah.
Like, man, I gotta get some shit off my chest.
Yeah, I gotta let you know before I kill you.
Shit. I was gonna post this on Facebook, but look, this is really what's happening. Look at this. Hashtag listen up.
Hell yeah.
The only time I think this really works is when it's something like Watchmen, where he like goes through the whole thing and they're like, well, we're going to stop you. He's like, do you really think I would sit here and tell you my whole master stroke if you had any way of like affecting it? It's like, but I kind of get it for a movie like this, because in order to kind of get what you want later on out of the second and the third movie, which I assume are probably like a little bit better than this first one, that might be up for debate, but I think they kind of have to stick to that formulaic thing. So like, I'm more forgiving of that once you see something that kind of progresses into a trilogy, because people don't know where it's going, and it's like, let's all just start on like common ground. Let's just do a typical kind of like action-y movie. We'll have one-liners and the villain monologuing. So I'm a little bit more forgiving of that. But yeah, this line, I saw it on some list where it made like one of the top 100 lines before the kill. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool actually. Like, and it is an interesting line. I like that. I got your gun. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, maybe you should shut the fuck up. Like, after he shoots him, he sees he's got all of it written down on his hand. He's like, wow, I didn't even notice that. I wish
It's like going all the way up his arm. He's like, I had a whole fucking speech ready.
It's like, man, this guy had some issues. So a total opposite version of people that monologue or directors or writers that go around those tropes of monologues. I think Zoheb might be able to agree. I don't know if Colin has seen these, but Joss Whedon with like Serenity and all the Firefly stuff. There's even times where they just skip entire conversations because somebody just shoots a gun and ends it, and the music and everything picks right back up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Joss Whedon
if
is
you're sick of
fantastic
that
at
type
that shit,
of
man.
Yeah, totally. That happens, I think, in some of the one of the two Avengers, but definitely in Firefly and Serenity, there's a lot of moments where they just avoid that. So yeah, if you hate that style, you'll laugh at it watching this shit.
I can think of an example, like right off the top of my head, like the sequence where Loki's like, talking to Hulk. And Hulk just fucking stomps his ass.
I will not be bullied by something.
Yeah.
And he just snatches his ass up.
Yeah, I remember everyone that was when I knew that like the Avengers and the whole Marvel thing had secured people, because everyone just lost their mind at that moment.
So Spock is on a collision course with the Narada. He turns around, goes into attack position, and Nero just fire everything. And dude, another goosebumps moment. This is the awesome moment of the USS Enterprise coming out of warp and just firing everything is badass. Love it.
Yes.
Very like New Hope, Millennium Falcon, like
coming
shit.
out of the sun. Yeah. Kirk rescues Pike. Spock crashes the ship with the red matter into the Narada, and Spock, Kirk, and Pike are beamed onto the Enterprise. Meanwhile, the black hole continues to expand in the middle of the Narada. Like, I love the visuals here with the spikes of the Narada kind of falling away. But I love, like, it's kind of like a side-on shot. Like, you've got the Narada, and then you've got this black hole just kind of consuming it from the middle. Kirk offers help to Nero, but his compassion will earn peace with the Romulans. And Spock, not really.
He's like, fuck that shit, bye.
Yeah, and Spock's like, not really, not this time.
One thing that did remind me of like the seeing this black hole opened up in the ship is Halo Reach. If you guys, I know Danny's played it.
I didn't play Reach.
Man,
Reach is so good.
That's a really, really, really excellent like game. But they do this at one point. They fucking open up like a slipstream in a ship, and it is fucking as chaotic as you can imagine, dude. Fucking just splitting this huge ship in half. So like, I really appreciated this scene because that's one of my favorite scenes from like the Halo mythology. That's immediately what it reminded me of. It's fucking cool, dude. If you ever get around, play that game. It's excellent.
Well, if they started a Halo movie series, which I know they're starting I think the TV series on HBO or Showtime or something this year, or something. I think something's in development. But if they started a movie series, they should start with Reach to set up everything for Master Chief, because that storyline, like Colin is saying, is like it's like Rogue One. It's the Rogue One of Halo.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I think the reason I didn't play it was because like I was young when it came out, and it was just like, oh, it doesn't have Master Chief, so I'm not playing it.
Right.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Noble team. That's who you play as.
Yeah, because I remember I think ODST came out before that, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not interested.
Oh, ODST is so good. Oh,
anyway,
we could do a whole Halo episode.
So Nero refuses Kirk's help, and Kirk orders them to fire on him. Fucking cold, man. I love it. And I love the music as the Narada just disappears into nothing, man. Like, it's just, everything's just like all the spikes have fallen off. Like, it's cool. It's fantastic. And the Enterprise gets caught up in the gravity well of the black hole. They don't have enough power to get away. I'm giving it everything she's got, Captain. Got Scotty's line.
Hey,
great.
Hey, did you see what they did there?
I did.
Did you see what they did? Hey,
I did.
Hey, Colin.
Scotty suggests ejecting the core and detonating, which works. Cool moment of the.
Sorry, I had to do it. I'm
you
sorry.
Fucker. Cool moment of the USS Enterprise escaping. And then you get Spock mistaking Spock Prime for his father, and Spock says that they can't avoid each other because there's so little of them left, and tells Spock that Kirk and Spock needed each other, and that's why he didn't tell him the truth. And Spock Prime urges Spock to remain in Starfleet, to put aside logic, and to do what feels right. I shall simply say, good luck. This is a touching moment.
Yeah.
I like this. The Academy Assembly recognizes Kurt's valor and is awarded with a commendation, and Kurt relieves Captain Pike as captain of the Enterprise. And then you cut to the Enterprise preparing for a mission. Spock's promoted to first officer. By the way, just quickly, Spock Prime's last line, thrusters on full, was actually improvisation from Leonard Nimoy. The scene was actually filmed showing Spock thoughtfully and quietly walking away, but afterwards, Leonard Nimoy approached J.J. Abrams and said, if you give me one more take, I have a thought and I'd like to inject here and see if you like it. And they did, and he said thrusters on full. And Abrams later called Nimoy to tell him how well he thought it led into the final scene, because it's them kind of like, setting everything up.
Like full speed ahead and going ambitiously forward.
Yeah, and Nimoy said it was kind of the inspiration for the line was a way of like saying to the younger cast, go ahead, take the torch and go, which is great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff.
And then you get Kirk, take us out. And then in the final shot of the Enterprise, the windows are actually in Morse code, and they actually spell out Khan, which is cool.
Oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
The windows.
Yeah.
The windows are like circles and dots into the Morse code of
they're
Khan.
like dots and dashes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But dude, space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And that's Star Trek 2009. Hey, we made it.
Hey.
Nice.
Fucking nice. I think we have a few comments, right?
Oh, fuck, I don't know. I didn't care about this movie. I didn't look up shit.
You motherfucker.
Zoheb, take us through some of the comments.
Take us out. All right, hold up. I'm pulling them up now. Does anyone want to do some kind of like rapping while I do this? Nope, don't do it. I've got it. Patrick Harrington, will this episode include lens flare somehow?
Oh, that's right. That's definitely commented.
I was just
far.
like, we haven't really figured out how to do that yet. But Patrick Harrington goes on to say, seriously though, I love this movie. Carl Urban as McCoy is so damn good. Patrick, I hope you rolled your eyes at Colin. I hope you did.
Yeah.
And he finishes his comment off with, and you get the fun Thor cameo at the beginning. Michael Claudio, this was the first Star Trek movie I'd ever seen. I like this movie. For a non-Trekkie, very watchable. And Bob Harrington.
Well put.
For
well
sure.
Put.
Bob Harrington also commented as well. Bob is obviously Patrick's wife. They both do Married People Watch Movies together, so check out that podcast. She said to Michael Claudio, same here, I love this movie, but I've never really watched or liked prior Star Trek movies. So very similar to us in that in that comment, Bob. And Clay Boynton, Carl Urban is the Kevin Bacon of sci-fi movies. Dude, he totally is. He's all up in sci-fi, like, you know, Dread. And like, I actually responded to Clay's comment. I said, hell yeah, bring back Almost Human. He was in this really like short-lived TV show called Almost Human. It was actually really good, but it got cancelled.
Oh, I think was that where one of them was a vampire, the other one was a werewolf or something like that? No, there's a show like that. It has Samuel Witwer, who's actually Starkiller in the Star Wars Extended Universe, but I can't remember. It's like Almost Human or Too Human or something like that.
It might be Too Human. Like, I'll read you like the synopsis for Almost Human. So, in 2048, a police officer wakes up from a 17-month coma without his girlfriend, and he survived a catastrophic attack on the police department. And basically, it's kind of like a police procedural, but in the future. It's actually got a good score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 70%, but it was canned. I guess it just didn't get the viewership.
That sucks.
Yeah, but it was good.
I hate when stuff like that happens.
It was good.
Firefly, to say that twice in one episode.
Yeah, Firefly's obviously the big one that, you know, everyone's trying to get back. But hey, I guess Serenity was the movie that capped it off, right?
Wrapped it up for the most part.
Wrapped it up, yeah. But yeah, man, Star Trek. Give us your closing thoughts, Danny.
I'm glad that they chose now to probably revitalize that. I say now, it's 10 years ago, but you know, just generally speaking, around this time of movies, that they had used it to revitalize that. And you can definitely see the similarities between Mission Impossible 3 and this one. Like the whole like ending like last 20 minutes, it's just like one huge long action sequence, which is very reminiscent, right, of Mission Impossible 3 and his early in that other work.
Yeah.
So, but I love the chemistry of everybody. The movie doesn't have like really any slow parts at all. It's just so much fun to watch everyone on there. And just, really enjoyed it. Could watch this, kind of like you, could probably watch this anytime.
Right. Give me a score.
Not my favorite. Oh, a score, a 9.
Right. Nice.
Probably.
Yep. Right. Colin, okay, you piece of shit. Give me the fucking, give me the lowdown.
There's some tropes.
And by the way, that show is Being Human. That's the one I was thinking of with Samuel Witwer. Okay. No,
right, so Almost Human is a prequel to Being Human, I guess.
yeah. But yeah, I don't hate this movie. I don't love this movie. I think that's about the best way I could put it. You know, I think that they could have done a lot more with Nero. He's really two-dimensional. He also looks like the vampires from Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the original TV show. Like when they first started off, like these bald-headed, like always frowns kind of bunched up like look. And I like the stuff with Spock and Kirk, and it's great. And I like to see that they flesh out these characters like a little bit more. You know, they could do a lot of stuff with the TV show, but you know, I think we live in an age of people who don't want to see things remade. They don't want to see sequels, prequels, reboots, and I understand that. But at the same time, something like Star Trek, even though I'm not not the biggest fan of it, it deserves to be passed on to a new generation. You know, I'm sure people thought it was sacrosanct when Next Gen came out, and you know, like that's a fucking awesome show. That's the one I actually watched the most of. So I think that people are afraid that someone's going to mess it up, because there have been some, you know, there's been some bad Star Trek shows for sure, and
also that probably happens sometimes when the storylines, you know, don't have a lot of depth to them. There's a lot of places to go with the Star Trek universe lore, right?
Right. There's only so much.
Watching this one movie alone, I could think of a lot of spin-off things.
Right. There's only so much you can do in a television episode. I don't mind J.J. Abrams' lens flares, but they're really heavy in this, like a little bit too heavy.
How did we talk about for 2 hours without actually going into them? Because,
I swear to God,
he's got us used to him.
I know. Yeah. It's kind of like, in a weird way, it's just like, it's like somebody who's in a relationship with someone who treats them like shit, but they don't even notice it by now, like, because they like all these other things about him. But like,
Colin, bud, you feeling okay? You want to hang out after this?
Colin, do you need to come stay tonight with us? But no, I think that
Who wants to watch Blade Runner?
I think this movie's okay. It's a little overhyped in my opinion. I don't think it's one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, but I do think it's a push in the right directions for people to start taking sci-fi seriously again.
On a scale 1 to 10, remember that Simon Pegg's in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, an 11 or a 12. No, because they do cool shit with, you know, this whole thing of like black holes and time travel and stuff. I don't mind it so much. They're clever about how they rebooted it, and I think that's kind of cool. So I give it a solid 7. You know,
nice.
It's a good movie. It's not a piece of shit. It's just not something that's kind of up my alley. And I can be objective in that and say, you know what, this movie is not for me, but I would absolutely recommend it as good sci-fi to watch. But it's not something that's going to be on my shelf anytime soon. But it's a good movie.
Nice. So obviously, no secret that I love this movie. I just think it's fantastic. It's got great action sequences, man. Some really good moments of build up to those action sequences, like the scene where they do the space jump, the scene where they, you know, warp out and, you know, they find the fucking ship graveyard, and just the sound design, man. Like if you watch this in a home theater, I wish I saw this at the movies. I didn't watch this at the movies. I saw it on Blu-ray first. So
it was awesome.
Yeah, like I could imagine like the sound system like just fucking this up, because like it has amazing sound design. And the effects of this, like I think they, like for the most part, I think they stand up. Like it has been 10 years. I can't really see any aging at all. I don't know about you guys. What do you think?
No, I think it looks fine. It
aged very well.
Yeah,
totally.
I'd say if you told me this came out in 13 or 14, I would be like, okay, cool. Like I believe you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it looks fantastic. I think when I think effects, I think they really kind of did well from 2007 onwards. So 2007 was like Transformers, and I put Transformers like right up there in terms of effects, like because I'd never seen anything like that beforehand. So, yeah, man, like this movie is fantastic. The chemistry between the cast, the writing is fantastic. The story is a lot stronger than it should be for a reboot. And J.J. Abrams directing, man, like it is, like you said, Danny, it is exciting from like minute 1 to the end. Like it's just not, you're not bored. Like the dude knows how to fucking make a movie. And it's entertaining from start to finish. And I love this. Like this is just a hell of a movie for me, man. I do think it does have a few issues. Like I said, there are a couple moments that just kind of falter for me. So I do give it like a 9.5 out of 10. Like it's not perfection, but it is great. And I think for me, it's my favorite Abrams movie. Yeah, and like that's saying something because I really love Force Awakens. So take that as you may. But yeah, this is fantastic. Star Trek Into Darkness, it's great. It's not as strong as this. I like before we might cover that sometime in the future. I might drag Colin. But I do think that's awesome. But it does go into a little weird territory. I think Benedict Cumberbatch in that is fucking outstanding. And I think Beyond is the weakest. I think it suffers from because that's not JJ, that's Justin Lin. So like it doesn't feel like it belongs.
Is that Fast and Furious? Yep. Justin Lin?
Yeah. So it doesn't feel as kind of polished as the first two. But yeah, Yeah, man, I love this movie. Fantastic movie. I'm glad we covered it. Thanks so much, guys, for covering this one with me. This was fantastic. Had a blast on this episode.
Yeah.
So I'm going to plug the socials. Do you guys have anything else to say before you head out?
Live long and prosper.
Hell
Happy
yeah.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Live long and prosper. We're hoping for an amazing 2019. We've already fucking kicked it off to a great start with an upcoming attractions episode. And then you got the Thing prequel that we filmed late last year that we dropped this year.
Filmed?
Did we say filmed? Recorded?
Yes,
Dude, holy shit.
Zoheb Ali and Colin Duncan, a two-man show. The Thing.
The Thing prequel. And no one shows up.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, we are Midnight Double Feature. We're on Facebook. We've got 2 pages on Facebook. We've got Midnight Double Feature, which is our main page. That's basically where we post all of our announcements and things like that. Like we announce our new episodes via there. And then we've got the after party, which is the conversation afterwards, or during. That's where we post all the news and just kind of have riff-raff. So that's the after party. And then we've got Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and we're on Twitter. That's at MDF Pod. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on iTunes. You can listen to us anywhere. So be sure to listen to us wherever you can, and give us some support by rating us and reviewing us on iTunes. We've hopefully got some new competitions in the pike. We just announced the winner of the Infinity War contest. So congratulations to I forgot your name on Instagram. We was announced on Instagram. So thank you so much to everyone who
Professional.
Yeah, I know, whatever. Thank you so much for everyone who entered into the Infinity War contest. We're hoping to do some more of those in the future. And we've got some more surprises lined up. On our next upcoming attractions episode, Matt and I are going to be doing our top 10 countdown of 2018. So Colin and Danny, if you want to tell me your top 10 after this episode, I'll be sure to weave that in there. We've got Oscars coming up at the end of Feb, so we're keen to talk about that soon. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.